Good morning, my dear children. Once again, we are back to our English class. Today, we will be doing literature, second chapter, The Star. In this chapter, we will study the story about a little girl who was very shy, and as she grew up, she became very famous. Can a shy, lonely child grow up to become a star performer? Now, this chapter is about a shy girl who becomes a famous star. There's a question that you ask the famous when they are obviously on their way to the top. And so I asked it, how did you get started? I said, who or what provided the necessary push? Now this question is being asked by a reporter. He is asking the star performer that how did everything start and who was the person who gave you the first start, who encouraged you. She gave me a quizzical look. She wasn't really pretty, but she had a merry sort of face. That, she said, is a stock question. But never mind, I can give you an answer. We'll have to go back about 15 years through. Now this star performer says, well, this is a very famous question which is often asked when you anybody becomes famous. And this is often asked very easily from everybody to everybody. So she says, anyway, since you have asked the question, I will answer you the question. But you need to go back 15 years. That's all right, I said. Do we have time? Now the reporter is saying, it's okay. But do we have the time that we can have such a long story? And as we stood there in the chilly dampness, chilly means cold. This is what she told me. Now the reporter is telling what she told about her life. In those days, she lived in the twilight land between childhood and adolescence, and she didn't like it much. She was 8 years old. She was awkward as a newborn colt, and when she looked in the mirror, which was as seldom as possible, all she could see was a pair of enormous eyes and a lot of bands on her teeth. She was shy, she was lonely, she was convinced that she was hideous. Her name was Margaret, but everyone called her Maggie. Now this girl was at the age of an adolescent. Neither she was adolescent nor she was a child. She was in the mid-age she was around 8 years old. Now she was just like a newborn colt, and she often used to look at the mirror. She did not like to look at herself in the mirror, and she was very shy. She did not, whenever she used to see at the mirror, she used to feel very shy. Now she was awkward because she used to use braces. Braces means the wire settings which we use for the teeth. Now her name was Margaret, but everyone used to call her Maggie. To make matters worse, she had a sister named Sybil, who seemed to be everything she was not. Sybil was 16, blonde and cunningly streamlined. Now she had a sister whose name was Sybil. Now she was just opposite to Margaret. Everything what Margaret was not, Sybil was. She was around 16 years and she was very cunning. She had decided opinions, and on this particularly wintry afternoon, she was voicing one of them loudly. Oh, mother, she wailed. Do we have to take Maggie? She's only a child and she can't even skate. Now, Sybil was going out and she was asking questions to her mother. she had her own opinions, and she was telling her mother that why have I to take Maggie along with me, because she's just a child and she does not know skating. The Bancrofts asked her, dear. Their mother said it won't do you any harm to have her along. Now the mother is trying to explain Sybil that the people who have called for the party have told to send Maggie also along. And moreover, she will not harm you if you take her. Sybil brushed back her honey-colored hair. But Larry is taking me. It's all arranged. Now Sybil started combing her hair, and she said that I am going with Larry and everything is set and I don't want to take her. He can take you both, their mother said in tones that Sybil recognized as final. Heavens, it's only an afternoon skating party. Now her mother strictly told her that you both can go. Larry can take both of you. Now with the tone of the mother, Sybil understood that mother is definitely wanting to send Maggie, and she has no option but to take Maggie along with. And after all, it's just a skating party. Sybil gave her sister a playful glance. Now playful means threatening glance, threatening look. You needn't worry, said Maggie in a small voice. I'll sit in a back seat and not say a word. Now Maggie very politely, she's saying that the sister, telling her sister that you need not to worry. I will sit quietly on the back seat and I will not say a word. He came at 3 o'clock, tall, lithy. Lithy means graceful looking. The best athlete in the high school. He was 17, but he seemed older. There was a kind of quiet assurance about him. Now, exact at 3 o'clock, Larry came to take them. Now, he was around 17-year-old and he was a famous boy in the school because he was famous because of his athlete. He was an athlete. Sybil explained in tragic tones that they wouldn't have a passenger. Sybil explained in tragic tones that they would have a passenger. Larry smiled. That's all right. Now Sybil told Larry that today they have an extra passenger with them. But Larry smiled very coolly and said that's all right. They went down the snowy path to the street, Sybil holding Larry's hand, Maggie stumbling along behind like a lost puppy. Sybil opened the rear door for her sister. Larry raised one dark eyebrow but said nothing. Now, as they were walking to the snowy street, Sybil was holding Larry's hand and Maggie was walking all by herself just like a lost puppy. They drove to the lake near the Bancroft's house. The lake was a sheet of magnificent black ice under the grey December sky. Already 20 or 30 skaters were swooping and spinning over the polished surface, their cries thin and sweet in the frosty air. Now, as they reached there near the Bancroft's house, they saw that there were already 20-30 skaters there. Their voices they could hear very clearly. Larry laced Sybil's skates for her. He offered to lace the pair that Maggie had been given for Christmas, but she refused. She would just watch. Now Larry helped Sybil to tie her skates. He also asked Maggie that would he help, but Maggie refused. She said, no, I will not do skating. I will just sit and watch. She stood small and alone, feeling her fingers and toes grow numb. Now she was sitting all alone in that cold wintry. Her fingers and everything went numb. Numb means ekdam se sun ho jana with the cold. The skaters circled like bright birds, their runners making the rhythmic whirring sounds. Watching them, she felt a longing that was almost like physical pain, a longing to be as graceful as they were, as beautiful as free. Now, as Maggie was watching these skaters, she was also feeling like to be one of them, to be graceful as those who were there doing the skating. But she could feel the pain sitting there, that she is not one of them. Larry must have been watching her, for suddenly he came over. He looked down at her. How about giving it a try? She shook her head, mute and miserable. Now Larry was observing her. He came to her and said that, how about giving it a try? Why don't you try skating? And she just shook her head and said, no. Why not? He persisted. It's fun. I am no good at it. So what? He sounded surprised. He started at her mittened hands. My father says that anything worth doing is worth doing well. Now Larry asked her, why you don't want to do? It's good, let's try. But she said, no, I don't want to. Now she says that my father said that anything what you do should be done well, or it should not be done. And I am not at all good in skating, so I don't want to do. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he knelt, unlaced his skates, slipped onto his moccasins. Come on, let's go. Now he stood quietly for a moment. Then his soft leather shoes he removed and he got into the shoes and he told her, come on, I will teach you. She looked up at him, startled. Go where? Over there, behind that point of trees. Bring your skates. Oh no, she said, I couldn't. Sybil. Now Larry is telling her, you go. So she says, where to go? He says, go there near the tree where you put your skates. Go and bring it from there. So she just in a stumbling voice, she said, no, I don't want to bring, because she just named her sister Sybil. She wanted to say something, but she kept quiet. Never mind, Sybil. His hand was under her elbow, strong and insist. Incredibly, she was walking beside him through the silver dusk. She said feebly, don't you like Sybil? Now he caught her and took her to bring the skates. And Maggie just asking Larry that, don't you like Sybil? Sure, he said, I like her fine. I like you too. Now Larry is saying, yes, I like Sybil, but I like you also. You are also a nice girl. Around the point was a little cove. Cove means an area of sea that is partly enclosed by land. This will do, he said. Put on your skates. But I put them on, I lace them for you. Now he insisted Maggie to put on her skates, but she was refusing, and he said, okay, I will put it for you. He laced her and then his own. He stepped lightly onto the ice and held out his hands. Come on, Maggie. Now he laced her skates, he laced his own skates and held her hand and said, come on, Maggie, let's go. She shook her head, her eyes full of tears. I can't, I am afraid. Now Maggie's eyes was full of tears and she said, oh, I can't, I am afraid. He said gently, I'll tell you why you are afraid. You are afraid because you are lonely. I know, because I was lonely once. Afraid to try things. Afraid of not going things well. Afraid of being laughed at. But finally I found out something. Now Larry is telling her, I know why you are afraid. You are afraid because you are lonely. You are afraid because you don't want to try things. You are afraid because you think that if you don't do things well, people will laugh at you. I can understand all these things because once I was also lonely. I was also afraid. She stared up at him, puzzled, confused. It was so quiet that she could hear her heart beating. Around them, the Stentland pines stood black and motionless. Above the pines, now the first star gleamed. Now she was very puzzled, confused. She could hear her own heartbeat, and they could see the trees that looked like guards on the duty, as if the trees were guarding them. Now, among these trees stood the first star. That was the first time, that was the first push which she got from Larry, who insisted her to start. It's funny, he said. I couldn't tell this to Sybil. I didn't think I could tell it to anyone, but I can to you. What I found out was very simple. It's that no one is ever really alone. Even when there's no other person around, there still must be someone. Someone who made you and therefore cares what happens to you. Someone who will help you if you do the best you can. So you are never alone. You can be alone no matter what you do. That's the secret of happiness, of doing things well, of everything. He held out his hand again. Come on, Maggie, he said. Now, Larry told Maggie that, see, I've never told Sybil also. It's very funny that she's been my friend, but I never told her also, and I'm telling you today. It's a secret. Nobody is alone in life. There is someone who is always there with you, someone who created you, someone who cares for you. And that's what the secrets of happiness. So, you can do things. If you do things, then only you will be able to be perfect. He held her hand and he told her, come on. She got to her feet and stood wavering. But then this right arm was around her waist and his left hand held hers. He said, all right, now just relax. Slide your left foot forward and push with the right. That's it. Now slide the right and push with your left. Fine. Now once more and again and again. Now within a second, Larry was teaching her how to skate. He was teaching her how to put the right leg and then put the left leg and how to slide. That was the story she told me in 5 minutes or less. Then the lights went out in the big arena. The music blared, the spotlight caught her, and she left me standing in the runway and flashed across the ice on glittering skates to meet the members of the troupe who came spilling out of the other runway. The crowd roared as the rink became a whirling kaleidoscope of the color and rhythm and movements. The greatest ice show on earth. They called it, I guess it was. Now this was her life story that she told, Maggie told the reporter. And then after that the spotlights were on her and she went to the arena where the other people came to meet her, and she was about to go for a biggest show on earth, the biggest ice show. I saw her husband standing in the darkness a few yards away, watching as he did every night. I moved up and stood beside him. He gave me a quick smile, but all his attention was out on the ice. She's wonderful, isn't she? He said. And it was a statement, not a question. Now the reporter saw Maggie's husband standing there, just a little further. He went to her, but he saw that he was observing Maggie only continuously, as he used to do every time. And he gave a statement that she is really wonderful. I looked at his face, so eager and proud. A reporter isn't supposed to feel much, but somewhere inside me there was a little unaccustomed glow. Now, reporters normally they don't give their opinion. They just take the report or gather the news and they submit their report. But this reporter gave his opinion also that she is really good. Now the reporter says, both of you are Larry, I said, but he wasn't even listening. So the reporter says, both of you are good, equally good. He's telling Larry. Now Larry was her husband, and he was the same boy who taught her to skates. Now with this we have done the chapter. With this we have finished our second chapter of literature. Now in the next class I will be sending you the question answers of this chapter.